Welcome back to the Injury Prone Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Edwin Porras, Doctor of Physical Therapy, Medical Analyst, FantasyPoints.com. As you notice on your Friday, or when you're listening on Saturday, potentially Sunday, you don't see Jorge by my side and you don't hear Jorge's voice. That is because we are having some scheduling conflicts. I'm going to a wedding this weekend and we are trying to get this done as soon as possible. For that reason, you won't hear him this week. But again, this is going to be a perfect example of a week when you're going to want to subscribe to FantasyPoints.com or sign up for the Patreon, patreon.com/injuryprone. If you go there, you're going to get the cheat sheet with projections for every guy that's coming off a major injury, all the major timelines for big guys, and the week 9 projections, transaction acquisitions, all that stuff. You're going to get that at patreon.com/injuryprone. Make sure you sign up, subscribe to the YouTube, all that stuff. If you sign up for the Patreon, we're doing a What the Heck special. Go ahead and get in there, get in the group, shoot me a DM, subscribe to the Patreon, shoot me a DM, and then I'll refund you the month just because. Again, this is going to be a really quick one, so let's get started. Guys who are already out: Drake London, Curtis Samuel, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Dameon Pierce, Justin Fields, Darren Waller, and Amari DiMercado is trending to be out. Of course, DiMercado is also Spanish for de mercado, which means of the market. However, I don't think he has any Spanish or Latin blood that I know of in him. However, we will say his name de mercado because that's what we do. That will be your Cultura Friday. So those guys are already ruled out. As far as this slate specifically and who that implicates, Curtis Samuel, I think this could, being out, could help boost Jahan Dotson and Jamison Crowder in particular. Those guys probably aren't anyone that you necessarily want to start in your standard season-long league unless you're really, really desperate. But if you need a desperation play, Jamison Crowder is your guy, or maybe in a tournament, you're going to want to throw him in a lineup just to get that salary and stuff the rest of your roster with stars. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, not that he was really taking a lot of work away from Isaiah Pacheco in general, but just keep in mind Jerick McKinnon is also dealing with a groin issue, so maybe we see even more Isaiah Pacheco this week. Dameon Pierce, this is going to be out with an ankle injury at least a week, and we know that means that we're probably going to see a lot more Devin Singletary in a game that should feature him, so this could be a good time for Devin Singletary. What a time to be alive. Devin Singletary and Zach Moss really showing out now that they are on different teams. Justin Fields, this is looking to be sort of what we projected initially. That week 10-ish range is realistic for him. Darren Waller, of course, is going to be out like we projected for at least a couple of weeks. Make sure you throw, Devin Singletary in any lineups, any cash lineups potentially, that you're going to have to eat the chalk there. And Amari DiMercado, I think Keontae Ingram could be the replacement there since they really have nobody else. Make sure you don't use them in cash, though. Guys who are going to play: Josh Allen, Daniel Jones, Devontae Parker looks like he's trending that way. Deshaun Watson looks like he's trending that way. Those guys, you put them in your lineup. Probably not Devontae Parker, but you put Josh Allen in your lineup. I guess really only one guy. You put Josh Allen in your lineup. You don't put Daniel Jones in your lineup. He's going to be volatile because taking hits, it might reproduce that injury, that neck injury that he's already having issues with. Devontae Parker, this is his second concussion in 2 years, so this could potentially be a hindrance to him. He could potentially have a re-injury, and he's not really worth the start in fantasy. Deshaun Watson coming back. We know his issue. We know this has been dealing with this for a couple of months now at this point. It was a contusion, then it was a sprain. At this point, it's really tough to say what he's going to be. You probably don't have to start him in single quarterback leagues unless you're really desperate. 2 QB leagues, Superflex leagues, I'm probably throwing him in there. I have him in one league there. So, it is what it is at this point. Maybe the Browns can turn it around, but he is highly volatile, Deshaun Watson is. I mentioned Drake London before. In general, wide receivers with a groin issue, they miss one game. And the range for NFL players in general is between 1 and 3 games. The Falcons have said that they don't think this is very serious. So hopefully this is just a 1-game absence for Drake London and we get him back next week. Just understand that the average for wide receivers is 1 game, but the general range for NFL players is between 1 and 3. Another wide receiver here, Puka Nacua. He's a guy who's dealing with some knee swelling. It's just something to keep on your radar. This happens. Guys twist, turn, get hit. Especially rookies, their bodies are adjusting to life in the NFL. It's just something to keep on your radar. Tyler Lockett's still dealing with the hamstring tightness. Likely isn't going to keep him out, but he has been limited in practice. He hasn't been putting up big performances. even though DK Metcalf is still banged up himself, I do expect him to eventually start taking over that passing game. It's coming. They're on the brink of a breakout. It's coming. You have to start DK Metcalf. Tyler Lockett, obviously, if you need a flex, that's fine. So the man of the hour, Matthew Stafford. Is he going to play? Is he not? What you need to know is that since 2018, we've seen 1 out of 12 quarterbacks not practice 2 consecutive days like Matthew Stafford. At this point, it's 3. The chances are slim that he's playing, but the confounders of the one dude who has played was Matthew Stafford in 2020 when he was dealing with this exact same injury, and he had surgery to correct it. So he wasn't good, though. So that's the problem. So even if Stafford goes, which I personally don't think he's going to, he is going to be volatile. It's hard to grip. It's hard to throw the ball. It's hard to have command. It's hard to hit tight windows. It's just going to be difficult for him to play and play well. In fact, the last time he did this, it was a complete rupture. We don't assume that's the case, but they did mention IR. The last time he played through this, he went 18 for 33 for 178 yards and no touchdowns. This is one of those weird situations where if Matthew Stafford doesn't play, I'm actually probably a little higher on Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua because they have no choice but to scheme those dudes up, and Sean McVay can do that with whoever's back there. Sean McVay could probably scheme up 1 or 2 plays for me with a decent quarterback to throw the ball. So that's what we have on Matthew Stafford. I don't necessarily think that he goes, but hey, it's something to keep in mind. Odds and ends, Michael Wilson. He's trending in the wrong direction, hasn't practiced this week with a shoulder issue. I do expect him to sit at this point, which obviously implicates Trey McBride, who everybody's super high on Trey McBride. Hopefully you were in the Patreon last week or 2 weeks ago, prior to week 8, when I said you should add Trey McBride because it is now going to pay dividends. Obviously, now that Devontae Parker is probably going to play, you probably can chill on the Pop Douglas. He still was second in on the team in targets. You can probably still throw him in a flex if you really need somebody or are desperate. And again, Jamison Crowder, because of the Curtis Samuel thing, is an option. Devin Singletary is probably going to be chalk of the week, but he is one nonetheless. The last guy that I mentioned before, Keontae Ingram, because Amari DeMarcado likely isn't going to go. I think he's a sneaky tournament RB2. Throw him in there for a salary, and I think he can pay off. And if you're really desperate in super deep leagues, throw him in your RB2 slot. That's going to do it. That's it. That's a quick one. That's a fast one. I understand. If you want more, I really mean it. Go to the Patreon, Injury Prone, Patreon, injuryprone.com. I say that every time. Patreon.com/injuryprone. Subscribe to it. DM me. I'll refund you for a month just because. Let's get you to the fantasy playoffs. You can decide if you want to keep it, stick around or not. I promise that you'll want to stick around. It's a really, really fun community. Like-minded people, always talking transactions, always talking who to start, always talking who to sit, what injury, what does this injury imply, like who's going to come back and be effective, all that stuff all week long with projected timelines updated almost daily in the Patreon. Subscribe to fantasypoints.com to get all my work there as well for a comprehensive breakdown for week 9. This was your primer. So, follow me on Twitter @FBInjuryDoc. And that's it for today.